Have you ever had a conversation with a prospective client who seemed to be all in? They said they love you, they love everything that you're about, but when it came to actually signing the paperwork and signing up with you, they said, I can't afford it. If that's something that you faced, I'm going to give you 5 tips today that's going to solve this problem once and for all. Let's get started. If you know that what you're offering is good and other people are selling it at a similar price point or perhaps even at a higher price point, then the issue is not that you're overpriced. It's most likely an issue of either credibility or not having enough leads or not high enough quality leads. So one of these 3, credibility, the quality of leads, and the quantity of leads. So let's talk about credibility first. You can build your credibility in 2 main ways. One is actually building a track record where you have great testimonials from previous clients or even from your own life if you're just getting started of what you've been able to accomplish in showing those results. This is the type of credibility that you're building purely based on your own strengths and your track record. Now, there is another type of credibility that's at least as powerful, if not more powerful, than showing testimonials and your own track record. And that is getting credibility through being featured in the media. You know, when you see those as seen on logos on someone's website, as seen on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, Forbes, Fast Company, all those different big name media logos, it's because they've been featured on those media outlets. And so what you want to try, especially if you don't have any of this yet, is just go and do a handful of media interviews to get started so that you get those big brand, big name logos to help build that credibility. Now, this is of course something that's an art and a science in and of itself. This is what I do and what I have been doing for the last 10 years for our clients. But today I'm going to give you a tip that will help you get started with getting some of those really prestigious as seen on logos very quickly. I want you to check out the website called GoBankingRates.com. This is a huge website with over 20 million monthly page views. A lot of finance related content, interest rates, as well as personal finance, stock information, all kinds of different things that have to do with finance. So first of all, don't worry if you're not in the finance space. We'll get to that in a second. But first of all, just getting featured on Go Banking Rates is already going to give you huge exposure. But secondly, the reason why I want you to get featured on this website is because they are partnered with and are syndicating their content to a million different really big brand name media. So I'm talking about media outlets like MarketWatch, Yahoo Finance, CNBC, CNN Business, MSN, NASDAQ.com, Business Insider, MoneyWise, Morning Brew, Market Insider, Google News. They're really partnered with the who is who of the business news world, and they need a lot of content. I'm consistently seeing requests from journalists who work for Go Banking Rates or who write for the publication wanting expert sources to weigh in on a number of different topics. Now, if you're not in the finance space, you still can likely get featured on this website simply by sharing your business story. So let's say if you're a book publishing expert or you're, let's say, a weight loss coach or something that really doesn't have anything to do with business or finance, still sharing how you came to do what you do in the form of a story when it's appropriate for one of the features on Go Banking Rates can be a really great way to get in. In fact, this is what we did for one of my clients, Morgan Giss McDonald, and also for myself. I got featured on Go Banking Rates where I shared my business story. How was I able to start a business on a shoestring budget? And the query that I responded to, where they asked me about my story, was literally just asking, how can someone start an online business for under $100? And so I shared with them that, I started my business literally just for the cost of buying a domain name, and everything else was sweat equity, like putting in the work, right? And so these articles very often get syndicated on Yahoo Finance, MSN, NASDAQ. Like, I can share some screenshots here of some of the articles that we got featured on all of these big name outlets simply by responding to a query from Go Banking Rates. Now, how can you find out what they're working on? Typically, they're working on multiple articles per day, so they're not very difficult to find. You can start following some of their journalists on social media. They'll be posting about what they're working on. Or sign up for a newsletter that's free called HARO, Help a Reporter Out. And when you see the emails coming in from HARO with all kinds of press opportunities, look out for Go Banking Rates and see what kind of stories they're working on, because more than likely you'll be able to find something really quickly that you can respond to, get featured, and then get your article syndicated on some of their partner websites, where the entire article will be republished on those websites. And so you will be able to use those big name media logos on the As Seen On section in your marketing materials. Tip number 2, so that we can get you in front of enough leads and enough prospective clients so that you don't have to deal with the I can't afford it situation. So we want to increase your positioning. We want to increase how you're seen, and we want to increase the traffic to your website or to your landing pages or your social media profiles, wherever it is that you're present online. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're consistently doing media interviews. What I recommend for most of my clients is that we aim for at least 2 interviews per week. This does not have to be difficult. This does not have to take a long time. Even if you were to do podcast interviews, which we'll come to in a minute, they are very, very easy to do. They're typically fairly easy to get as well. And let's say a podcast interview lasts a half hour or an hour. Let's say an hour, right? It will take you about 2 hours a week to conduct these interviews, and you'll be getting tons and tons of leads coming your way. This is what we've been doing for a lot of my clients who have niche businesses that are not really for the mainstream as far as what kind of topic they're covering, and they're making literally millions of dollars. So podcasts are highly recommended, but generally speaking, you can do 2 interviews a week. You'll be golden. Now, if you're doing other types of media, so not podcasts, but let's say TV interviews or articles, those can go actually a lot faster, because a TV interview is typically 3 to 5 minutes. It's really quick, so it's not going to take a ton of time, and it will give you great marketing material that then you can share with your audience, so that you don't also have to produce as much content. So getting that frequency up, getting higher quality leads, getting higher quantity leads starts with doing about 2 interviews per week. Tip number 3. We want you to get in front of potential clients who are higher quality clients than a random person who you might meet on social media or just the average person on the street. So where do they congregate? What kind of media do they consume? And this is where podcasts come in. Did you know that there is a research study done every single year by Edison Research? They started actually in 2012, so more than 10 years ago, where it researched the podcast consumer. And I've been following their yearly report literally every year for the past 10 years. And I can see how podcasts are, first of all, getting more and more mainstream, but also the trends are staying consistent in that podcast listeners, compared to the average population, tend to be better educated, tend to be more social media savvy, and tend to have a much higher household income compared to those who don't listen to podcasts. So we are talking about an average of a minimum of $100,000 per year in household income amongst those who listen to podcasts. In addition, podcast listeners have a real bond with the show hosts whose shows they're listening to. The average person listens to several shows per week, with the average being about 9 hours, over 9 hours actually, of content. So my question to you is, where are you finding your share of ear here? How many of those 9 hours are these consumers spending listening to your interviews? You see why I'm saying it's so important that you do podcast interviews, and they're really fairly easy to get. I'm going to give you some resources in the link below in the description to help you get booked on podcasts. You want to make sure that you're doing this consistently, because this is really the niche, the corner of the media world where you'll find the most affluent, the most eager to learn and eager to buy type of audiences. So it's very, very well worth your time to do podcast interviews. Tip number 4, the frequency of your media interviews. You want to make sure that you're consistently doing your interviews instead of just gathering them into a little blitz. Some people have the idea that they will try it for a month or 2 months and they just want somebody to quickly book them on a bunch of shows in a short period of time, and that will solve their problems. And that's not the case. Frankly, you have to be consistent. So remember how I shared earlier that I want you to do about 2 interviews per week consistently? This is not going to take a whole ton of time, but it will give you repetition, because most people need to hear about you and see your offer, get to know you a little bit before they are able to pull the trigger, before they are able to say yes to your offers, right? So you want to make sure that you have the opportunity to have that longevity in the media space so that you can get the actual benefits. So what you want to do is make it part of your routine. I'm doing 1 to 2 interviews, let's say, per week. And on top of that, I'm going to do anything that's more just-in-time opportunities, where it's not really based on my proactive outreach, but more on responding to journalist requests, very similarly to what I shared in tip number 1, where you're looking out, for example, for Go Banking Rate opportunities. Tip number 5. This is so important, and I see so many people fail exactly at this point, and it's really unfortunate. So I'm going to show you how to not fail with this, but how to succeed. So a lot of people, when they do media interviews, they see a little spike of traffic depending on the size of their outlet, right? And whether or not they did a good job on the interview, whether or not that was the right fit for their message. But let's say it was all perfect. They see that there is a spike of traffic, people are coming to their website, they're interested. Now, this is where most people drop off. This is where they just say, okay, I did it, that's it, right? No. What we want to do is take your published interviews and use it as content in your marketing. So you want to look at what are your sales and marketing activities that you're already doing, whether it's email marketing, paid advertising, social media, organic content, sales calls, whatever it may be that you're already doing. And now you want to lift those results. You want to get better results by taking your media interviews and integrating it with all of your other processes. So what do I mean here? So let's say, for example, we just simply take an email nurture sequence. People can sign up to a freebie that you're sharing, for instance, on a podcast or on social, anywhere on your website. They sign up for your email list. Typically, they would get a few emails right away, maybe once a day, that is part of your welcome series, right? So this is your opportunity here immediately to improve the results on this welcome series emails, is by making sure that you're establishing your credibility and you're giving them content that they can listen to and can start binge watching you or binge listening to you. So you would take, for instance, an article that you had in Forbes magazine or a TV clip that you had on ABC or anything like that, and include it as part of your content in your welcome series. If you're doing social media marketing, of course, share it as much as you can, multiple times, keeping in mind that the algorithms work in such a way that only a small percentage of your content actually gets seen by your followers. So you want to make sure that you're taking your interviews, especially if they're long form, snip it up into smaller pieces and share it with your audience. If you're doing paid advertising, then again, you could take your existing TV interviews, articles, blog posts, whatever it might be, podcast interviews, and use it as content in your retargeting campaigns. My clients are seeing as much as a 90% drop in client acquisition costs just by using this strategy. So you want to make sure that you're promoting your interviews and you're connecting it and integrating it with your existing sales and marketing activities so that you lift the results there. In addition, when you're using your media pieces strategically and you're sharing it included in all of the other things that you're already doing in your business, you're creating this impression in the eyes of your audience that, wow, this person is everywhere. Meanwhile, you are being very strategic on how you're using your published interviews. Instead of just leaving it to be that one and done kind of deal, you're actually making it a big part of your content to increase your results across the board. So let's recap. Here are the 5 tips that I shared with you today to make sure that you don't have to deal with the "I can't afford it" type of excuse anymore. You want to make sure that you build your credibility. You want to get higher quantity of leads by increasing your visibility overall by doing media interviews. You want to get higher quality leads, so definitely pay attention to podcasts. You want to make sure that you're doing it consistently and frequently enough to have enough repetition, so about 2 interviews per week. And make sure that you promote your interviews so that you build trust with your audience and you make sure that they see you truly as the expert that you are, and that over time you can build that positioning to be really truly the go-to authority in your industry. Now, if you would like to learn how to get these media opportunities, who to reach out to, what to say, how to pitch yourself, what type of media outlets you should be going after specifically for your business, I'm going to give you the link just down below in the description to a free workshop that I'm hosting that will answer all of these questions. So make sure that you join. The link to the workshop is borntoinfluence.com/workshop. Super easy to remember. borntoinfluence.com/workshop. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.